All right, so there are two big stories tonight. One hits you in the heart, the other, the head. The DOJ watchdog's report on the FBI's handling of the Clinton investigation is in, and there's a lot of brain food in there. Plenty of blame for Jim Comey, gossipy and biased and leaky agents, and some troubling conclusions. We're going to break down the other findings in just a minute, but let's lead with our hearts. Immigrant families being separated at the border, and the Trump administration has a new defense, saying the Bible justifies this. Let's bring in Republican Congressman Jim Jordan. Congressman, always a pleasure. We'll do a twofer. Talk about immigration, talk about the IG report. Good for you?
Yeah, and first, congratulations on the new show. Good to be with you.
Thank you. Good to have you as part of the conversation. Appreciate you taking the opportunity. So, what's going on at the border? Do you believe that this is the right way to enforce the law?
What I think is we should enforce the law, and we should do what the American people elected us to do, Chris. Put the kind of immigration policy forward that was front and center in the campaign, that was the mandate of the campaign, mandate of the election, which is build the border security wall, end chain migration, stop the visa lottery, and reform the asylum policies that we have currently, as well as get rid of the sanctuaries. All those things were front and center in the election. And then also we should deal with the DACA population. And we've been very clear about that. And there's legislation pending in the House that would accomplish that and be consistent with the mandate and what we told the American people we were going to do.
But you're aware that lawmakers on both sides say you don't have to enforce it this way. Even Paul Ryan said he doesn't like this, and he's folded it into that bill that you're talking about.
Right.
And you went through the points quickly, so let's put it up on the board for people, what the different elements are in that overhaul legal immigration, boost border security, about $26 billion in there. It's not what the president wanted, but it's something. End family separation. Path to citizenship for DACA recipients. So back to my original question.
Yeah.
Do you agree with ending family separation?
Well, no one wants to separate families, but I just
That's
had
not true. The Attorney General does. He even says God wants him to enforce the law this way.
Chris, I had the folks from ICE in my office earlier today. I had the folks from Border and Customs and Borders in my office earlier today. Everyone knows we need to reform the asylum laws. 80% of people coming to the border seeking asylum, 80% aren't legitimate. They told me that. So we got to clean that up. For those who are, we want to keep those families together, and those who are truly being persecuted, not just ones coached to say, oh, there's a credible fear that I'm being persecuted, coached to say the right thing so they get to come to this country illegally. But those who are truly being persecuted, we want to help them.
Right.
We want to keep their families together. No one disagrees with that. That's common sense. But let's do the right things. Let's do what we told the American people we were going to do. Build the border security wall in sanctuary cities, stop the crazy visa lottery, and reform our asylum laws in a way that's consistent with what I just said.
But you never said, and we will separate all families that come across the border, and the law doesn't make you do it. This is a choice of enforcement. So you have two options the way I see it. The big bill that Ryan has that you're talking about, while he folded this in, it's still not going to come to a quick conclusion. You can't even get agreement with your part of the caucus on the party side, let alone with the Democrats. Why not do something right away to stop the separation of the families? Or, and this may be heresy, just to stay with the Bible theme, you could look the administration in the eye and say, this is your choice.
I got a better plan.
Stop enforcing it this way.
Chris, I got a better plan. Why don't we do what we said? Why don't we just do what we said? Right? Why don't we pass Chairman Goodlatte's got a great piece of legislation that I've been for months.
Won't happen fast enough.
Why don't we do what we
Every day these kids are separated from their families is a bad day.
And deal with that, and deal with that as well. But why? I mean, it never hurts to keep your promise. It never hurts to keep your word.
When did you promise I'm going to separate every family that comes across the border, even if they're seeking asylum, and I'm going to take the kids, and I may lose track of some of them, but that's okay.
Chris,
God likes it.
I campaigned on the same issues President Trump campaigned on, and the American people made him president and put Republicans in control. Put Republicans in control of the House and the Senate. Build the border security wall. Stop all the crazy policies. Reform our asylum laws, but do it in a way that's consistent with helping people who are truly persecuted. That's what I'm for.
But how is this helping? That's the part I don't get. It just seems like it's harsh for harshness' sake. We're going to prosecute every case. Forget about catch and release. Say that the Democrats started that when you know that that's BS. Say that this is from a law that the Democrats gave when you know that that's BS. And we're going to do this because it sends a message of harshness.
We do know the Democrats and the former president started this DACA thing with the DACA executive order that the president gave that was ruled unconstitutional.
He had to, because you guys wouldn't act on it.
And that
you
sent
wouldn't
a message,
get anything done, Jim.
That sent a message for people to come here. And some of them are just being coached to say whatever it takes to get in this country. We're trying to sort that out.
Jim, you guys
That's what we got to do.
Act on it. You guys can't get the bill through.
I'm willing to act on it, but I want to do it in a way consistent with the election.
But what I'm saying this, I don't see how. Here's our sticking point. You seem to be suggesting that if you do something just on this separation of families and kids and parents rather, that's somehow not keeping a campaign promise. I don't buy that. Who did you tell we'll do this in the harshest way possible, even when not necessary?
Come on, Chris. You know we got to address the whole thing.
No, I don't.
That's central.
I don't.
Yes,
Honestly, I don't get it, Jim. I don't know why you can't just do this when you've got bipartisan agreement.
Chuck Schumer said that. Lindsey Graham, who's much more moderate on this issue on the Senate side than I think Republican voters.
Not
and
about
certainly
this
me.
issue.
He said you link the DACA population, you link what's going on with the border with doing the security measures we need to do to actually secure the border.
But that was
interior
before
enforcement.
this exigency.
You have to link all that.
But that was before this exigency. And you know what the real shame is here? We lived through this before, okay? Now, there's a different enforcement tactic being used right now. There's more enforcement being used right now than there was back then. But we lived through this already.
And there's been less crossings.
And
there's been less crossings, less illegals coming across the border under the Trump administration. And the American people support that.
It depends on how you look at the numbers, but that's not my quibble with you. My quibble is, and it's not a quibble, it's actually outrage, that you don't have to enforce it this way. You say you don't like that families are being separated. Everybody says it, but you won't do anything about it.
We want to pass a bill that addresses the whole issue,
but
just like we said.
But you can't get it passed. There's too much stuff in it.
We don't know that. We should have been working on this sooner. I agree with that. I would have preferred we passed the Good Lot legislation much sooner, which did reform our asylum laws in the proper way. And as I just said, 80% of the 100,000 folks coming to our southern border.
I'd like to see the numbers. I've seen different numbers about it. I think it's hard to know what is true and what isn't true in one sample like that.
2,000 a week. Times 52 weeks, slightly over 100,000, Chris. I got that information
today. But I'm
today
saying how many
ICE.
are real versus not real versus
80%.
Agents that you have making judgments that may be right or wrong. I just think it gets more complicated.
Hard-working agents on the coast, on our southern border who are saying, we need resources to do this right.
Well, there's no question that you need more resources. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. All I'm saying is this. You got Jeff Sessions saying, you know, the Bible says that, you know, this is order and just and fair, and that's great. God loves good process. It's none of those things. It's not an orderly process. It's haphazard. It's not fair because you're taking families who are coming and presenting themselves for asylum and treating them like fence jumpers, a phrase that you guys like. And I don't know why you just don't fix it.
And if they're truly a family, we want to keep them together.
But then why don't you fix the separation policy, Jim? That's the part I don't get.
I'm 100% with you. But we got to fix all of this because, again,
even though you have an emergency,
we told the American people we were going to do.
Even though you have an emergency, you think the American people would be upset at you if you fixed this first?
No, I think there should be a common sense approach to this, but I think you also got to do it in a bigger piece of legislation.
But that's not common sense because you won't get it done, and these families will stay separated. I don't get it.
Maybe this will be the catalyst to help us get it done and do all those right policies.
It's not shaping up like that right now. I'm barely getting there with you on this. All right, you want to switch to the IG report because that's a big topic, and I don't have all that much time. All right.
Of course.
All right. So here's how we broke it down. I'm going to have to change the headings depending on what party I'm talking to between good facts and bad facts. But I prepared this just for you, Jim, okay?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So the good fact from your perspective, which is you wanted to see in this report if the suggestions and allegations about these agents being up to no good was substantiated. 5 biased agents they found. I think there was an attorney in there as well, but let's use the phrase broadly. That's your fact. They found it. They found more text from Strzok that say, I don't like that he's going to win. Don't worry, we'll fix it. That's very tantalizing. You guys are all over it.
Yeah.
The bad fact is they conclude that there was no impact and there was no exercise of that bias on any of the decisions.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, come on. They say, we do not have confidence that Strzok's decision was free from bias. So his bias did impact his decision. They say it. And I've looked at a number of these Inspector General reports when the IRS targeted conservatives, the State Department Inspector General report after Benghazi.
Let's stick on this one. What do you got?
This is some of the hardest hitting language I've ever seen in an Inspector General report.
They said that there was no impact on the
free from bias and it impacted his decision.
No, they say that it impacted his decision of prioritizing
the Russian investigation over the Clinton investigation.
But in terms of the decisions that were made, and the conclusions that were drawn, they say there was no impact. But you can't run away from that.
I mean, Chris, 5 biased people. Yeah, they happen to be the top people at the FBI who ran the Clinton investigation. And then, oh, by the way, went to the Russian investigation. And oh, by the way, 3 of those 5 were put on Mueller's team.
And then they got removed as soon as this came out. Another bad fact for you.
Right, which shows how biased they were.
No, it shows that there was accountability.
We have the Inspector General saying, we do not have confidence. In other words, they had no confidence that Strzok's decision was free from bias. He was trying to say, forget about the Clinton investigation. Let's get focused on Russia.
But they
because
also
why?
say
Why?
that there were no conclusions. Here's the other
because
one that's
we
a fact.
have to stop Trump. That's Peter Strzok's words, not mine. The guy who ran the Clinton
but they
investigation,
didn't find
opened
any
the Russian
proof
investigation.
that he did anything to do that, including, and I think this is the toughest thing for you to handle in terms of your perspective on this, if Strzok, Page, Attorney 2, and all the other people who are in this group of 5, and maybe let's say 50, all right? Let's just exaggerate it for the sake of this point. If they wanted to compromise Trump, they didn't do the easiest thing that would have been the hardest to trace to follow up on their supposed bias, which is leak about the Trump probe during the election. Comey decided not to talk about it, only talk about the Clinton one. But if these people wanted to get Trump so much, why didn't they leak that they were looking at him?
Because they were all convinced Clinton was gonna win.
Nah, it doesn't follow logically. If you wanted to get Trump, you would have done that. Let me get to the other points before I lose you.
They opened the investigation on July 31st. Peter Strzok. 8 days later, text message, "We'll stop Trump." 6 days later, insurance policy.
But
if that doesn't show bias and intent to do harm, and then no confidence,
he didn't follow through on it, which this inspector general was obviously looking for. You know how exacting this report is. You said you've looked at other ones. Comey is bad, it says in here, that he did inappropriate things.
We all knew that.
There's no question about it. But he also said this, which I want your take on. It was right for him not to charge Hillary Rodham Clinton, that was done in the keeping with the consistent thoughts about prosecution within the department. So he went out of school. He did things he shouldn't have done, but he arrived at the right conclusion. Is that okay with you?
No, I mean, I've said all along, I thought he was wrong throughout this investigation. I thought he was wrong in July.
But that it was right not to charge HRC.
I disagree with that, but Horowitz can reach the conclusion he wants, and Comey obviously reached that conclusion. But I criticized Comey in July at his press conference. I criticized him again in October when he reopened the case. I think he screwed this thing up from the get-go, and I think Mr. Horowitz's report points that out. And I underscore the fact that the top agents, that Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and FBI lawyer number 2, all were involved in this, all had extreme animus towards President Trump, and all, I think, used that in the course of this investigation.
But you don't know that. You don't know the last part, Jim. It's not in this report.
No, Horowitz said they did not follow in any way normal FBI protocol, normal FBI procedures.
Says in the report that looking at the decisions that were made in the investigation, he didn't see proof of bias. And look, the biggest fact for him in reaching that conclusion is they didn't leak.
We have no confidence
the Trump
that
probe
Peter
out into
Strzok's
the media.
decision was free of bias. If that's not saying bias impacted Peter Strzok's behavior, the lead agent, deputy head of counterintelligence, the guy who launched the Trump investigation, the guy who 8 days later said, "We'll stop Trump," the guy who 6 days later says, "Don't worry, we got an insurance policy." If that doesn't show bias impacted this, I do not know what does.
But you are taking what the IG said with specific context to his prioritization of Weiner versus the Russia probe and applying it to everything that was done in the Russia probe. And the inspector general makes a point of saying, no, don't go that far. We don't see the proof. And it makes me wonder if it's really never been about the report of the facts. You just want this to be said and be out there as kind of just poisoning the well of what happens with the Russia probe.
But remember the time frame. We're talking late September through late October when they have Weiner's laptop. And Peter Strzok is saying, hey, don't worry about that.
And by the way, they wound up finding nothing of any value on the laptop.
But that wasn't his motive. His motive was he didn't know what was there. Downplay that. Don't worry about that. Let's focus on the Russian investigation, because why? Even though we think Clinton's going to win, we got to stop Trump. That was what was in his mind, and
that wasn't the only reason. That wasn't the only reason reflected in the report. It was Russia's interfering with the election. We're getting a lot of information that there's been, untoward contact between the Trump people and Russia.
Then why didn't he say we have to stop Russia? Why did he say we have to stop? If he'd have said we have to stop Russia, you got a point. But he didn't say that.
Well, we don't know what he said and what he didn't say. Even in all those appendices, which literally I think hurt my vision today, trying to get a sense of the context for the data, they don't have all the back and forth about these things. They spoke to him, but they don't relay all that in the transcripts that were laid out. But these are the points. And the last one is that it certainly has to be addressed. The FBI was a sieve in certain respects. And Christopher Wray says they're going to fix that. You've been...
Andy McCabe was the worst.
You've been a big dog on that trail. Yeah, and then also this spells out there, too, what was McCabe lying about? He was trying to make himself look good about wanting to continue to go after Clinton. I don't know how that makes him an enemy of Trump.
Maybe if the FBI didn't have 13 different personnel at the FBI talking to one reporter, Maybe if they were less concerned about their public relations and their image and more focused on doing their job with the normal procedures at the FBI, maybe we would have got a different outcome in the Clinton investigation, and we could get the. Maybe that would be a lot better for the American people.
I don't know that you would have gotten a different conclusion, and there is nothing in the Inspector General's report to support that conclusion. However, we do know this. That kind of leaking is something they're going to have to police. As a journalist, it's a statement against interest, but we'll see what they put in place, and I look forward to talking to you about that and the other implications from this, and let's see if anything gets done to help those kids on the border.
Right.
Jim Jordan, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, brother.
All right.